Hey Spencer, this is Matt Nays. I'm going to go over the hyperbola formulas. So first, before we get started on anything, we need to write out the formulas. Just kind of give you an idea of how we're going to set everything. The goal of this, and again, I'm going to do this two ways because I don't know how they want you to answer this, if they want you to leave it as a fraction or if they want no fraction, okay? So we'll do both, and then you can decide which one your final answer is because I didn't see anything else. So some books want you to leave it as a fraction, some books want no fractions, okay? So we're going to first start with if your function opens, because again, there's two versions of this. There's one where it opens horizontally, all right, and one that opens vertically, okay? So if it's horizontally, let me change this. Hyperbola. I really even know how that's pronounced. I'm from the South. We say everything wrong anyway. So the hyperbola formula for this is going to be x minus a squared. Not a. X minus h squared over a squared minus y minus k squared over b squared equals 1. And that's how we're going to set up every formula. Now the goal here on each one of these is to find the center. So that's another formula. The center is hk. And then find a and b. And they give us enough information each time to find a and b, because there's lots of different things that have a and b. And the first one is if they give you the vertices. So the vertices, if it opens horizontally, is h plus or minus a k. So k doesn't change. So if they give you the vertices and k doesn't change, that is your k. That's the k from the center. So that's going to be the same thing. Okay. And then we can easily find h, okay, because if I want to know what a is, all right, since I know it, again, if I want to find h, I can say average these together. So h is equal to h plus h minus a over 2, because what's going to happen here is the a's will cancel and give you 2h over 2, which happens to be h. So we can find h, and since we know what h is, we can say, well, a is the change from the center to the vertice, so we can easily find a. Okay, so, and then once we have a, we can easily find c, or find b, using another formula. All right. So we have the foci as well, another formula, which is h plus c, plus or minus c, over k. Again, if they give us the foci, then we can easily find h and find k. K is given, h would be the average of the two foci points. Okay, so, and then once we have that, we can find c. Now the big thing is, once we have a or c, we can use the Pythagorean theorem, which is c squared is equal to a squared plus b squared. Okay, so that gives us a lot. And in some of your questions, you're going to be given the asymptotes, which is y minus k is equal to plus or minus b over a, x minus h. Okay. Now the important part about the asymptotes is really this. This is really the only thing we care about. The asymptotes do tell us if these aren't here, then the origin, your center, if basically if you have y is equal to plus or minus b over a x, the center is 0, 0, because there is no minus h and plus k and minus h. Okay. So let me see here. Let me see, it might be minus Yeah, it is minus. Okay. Just making sure. Here we go. One more thing, and the last one took me a second because I had to figure this one out. Eccentricity. All right. The eccentricity is basically how close to a circle this is, and there's a function for all of these. The idea about the eccentricity of a hyperbola is E is always greater than 1. But the thing is, the formula that gives you is that E is equal to C over A, or, since we know C is, so C squared is equal to A squared plus B squared, we could say the square root of A squared plus B squared over A, because C would be the square root of A squared plus B squared. So that's what we're primarily going to use, is that right there for the eccentricity. Okay, is the fact that it gives us A. Whatever the denominator is A. So that's kind of nice. It gives us A, and it gives us an easy way to find B. Alright. So, moving on. I think that's everything for if it opens up horizontally. Let's look at what happens if it opens up vertically, and it's going to be very similar. The difference here is the formula changes if it opens up vertically. Okay. Then you have your formula for the hyperbola is y minus k squared over a squared minus x minus h squared over b squared equals 1. So the difference here is that y minus k goes first, and h minus x minus h goes second. But a squared and b squared stay the same. They have to be in this position. A squared is always first, b squared is always second. Now the changes in center, there's no change in the formula for center. Center is still hk. But your vertices, since y is the one that's changing, h will remain the same, and we'll have k plus or minus a. So again, we'll be able to find, if we're given the vertices, we're given h, we're given the h value of the center, and we average the vertices to find k. Alright, same thing with the foci. We have h and then k plus or minus c. Again, c is still equal to, or c squared is still equal to a squared plus b squared. So that's still true. And we're going to use this quite a bit to find a or b, depending on what we want to know. Usually you find b, because a is given a lot of these. B is the one we really have to find. Now, here's another change for the asymptotes. We have y minus k still, but here's the change. Instead of b over a, it's plus or minus a over b. So that's the change. Here's the thing. If you remember slope being your rate of change in y over your rate of change in x, this has to apply to the y, the change in y. Okay, so x minus h. And the denominator is changed to the change in x. So that's where this comes from. A is with y here, and b is with x. Up top, a is with x, b is with y. So that's why it's b over a, because b is with y, a is with x. Here, a is with y, b is with x. So a is with y, b is with x. That's why it changes. It's not really important, not really that important, but it might help understand why this formula changes. It flips the fraction. It's because the function operates differently. And the eccentricity is the same, so E is still going to equal C over A, which is square root of A squared plus B squared over A. Okay, so that gives us everything we need to do these questions. Now, to do these questions, let me look at the first one. We have x-intercepts. I'm just going to write it down. So x-intercepts at plus or minus 3, which basically means we have -3, 0, and 3, 0. Okay, and the foci at plus or minus 5, so -5, 0, and 5, 0. All right, and that's all the information we're given. Now, that's plenty, because we know here, which really what we know here is the intercepts and the foci. Because even though the fact that we have intercepts, you're not going to have y-intercepts if it opens up. Well, I guess you could if they shifted, so I guess I shouldn't say that. But anyway, here the big thing is your foci. Since x is changing, that means it opens up horizontally. So we're going to be using x minus h squared over a squared minus y minus k squared over b squared equals 1. So we're using that setup. Now we know what k is. This right here is k, that's k. K is 0. So that's just going to be y squared. That's gone, just y squared. And to find h is the average of these two. So negative 5 plus 5 over 2 is 0 over 2, or just 0. So h is also 0. So this is x squared. So what I have now is x squared over a squared, plus y squared over b squared equals 1. Now, if you remember, the formula for the foci is h plus c and h minus c. So since h is 0, this equals 5 and negative 5. That means c has to be what? So c equals 5. And since we have x-intercepts, that means that that is our vertice. The x-intercepts would be the vertice if the origin, if the center is at the origin. So these are the vertices, which means if you remember the formula for vertices, negative 3 is h plus or minus a. No, it's not an a, it's an 8. A. And positive 3 is h plus a. So that means a is 3. So we have enough to use the formula c squared plus c squared equals a squared plus b squared. Okay, so we have enough for that formula. This is 5 squared equals 3 squared plus b squared. So 25 is equal to 9 plus b squared minus 9 minus 9. 16 equals b squared. So b is equal to 4. Now plugging all this in, we have x squared over 9 minus y squared over 16 is equal to 1. Now, if it's okay for you to leave it as a fraction, then that's your answer. Okay, that is your answer if they want you to leave it as a fraction. But if they don't want any fractions, what you have to do is multiply everything by the denominators. So you're going to multiply everything by 9 and 16. Now what's going to happen here is the 9 is going to cancel, and it's just going to be 16x squared. 16 cancels, minus 9y squared. And 9 times 16 is 144. So, if they don't want any fractions, that is your answer. So again, on every one of these questions, we are tasked to find h, k, a, and b. Okay, once we have h, k, and a and b, easy. Okay, now we're not going to be given b a lot. What we're going to be given is h, k, a, and c, and we're going to use c to find b. Or we're going to give them the eccentricity, which we can use that also to find b. Okay? Okay. Alright, sorry. Just had a stretch. With this, you should be able to solve the second question. It's the same thing, but this time, instead of opening horizontally, it's going to open vertically. Okay? So, go ahead and try that. If you have any questions on that, just let me know, and I can text you to the work. Okay? Let's look at the next one where they give you the asymptotes. So again, I'm going to do 31. You should be able to do 32. It's similar. The difference is here, y. It's y squared over a squared minus x squared over b squared. Okay? So here, let's look at this. This one, we have vertices. So this is number 33. We have vertices at, that's an R and that's a T. We'll just say that is. 0, 6, and 0, negative 6. And then we have asymptote, so y is equal to plus or minus 1/2 x. Alright, so that's what we're given. Now, since we're given this, number 33, since here y changes. Now, if y changes on your vertices, that means it opens vertically. Okay, just like number 32, y is the one that changes, so it opens vertically, which means my h is 0 for my center. Center, 0. Now, most likely, again, you kind of notice you have your equation of your asymptotes. They don't have a minus h or minus k. So is my k. My k is 0, 0. This right here tells us my origin is my center. Okay. Now, this right here, if you remember, sorry, where was I? I had to get my kids to stop yelling. So we know our center is at 0, 0. And right here, their asymptote, if we remember the formula for the asymptotes, open vertically, this gives you plus or minus a over b. Now, you have to be careful. This doesn't give you a and b. This gives you the ratio of a and b. So the ratio of a and b is 1 to 2. So if you cross multiply, that gives you 2a is equal to b. Okay? Now, what we have to do is either find a or find b, which basically means I'm going to find a, okay, and then plug this in to find b. Now, if you remember your vertices, this gives you k plus a and k minus a is 6 and negative 6, and k is 0. So a is 6. So 2 times 6 is 12. A is 6, b is 12. You have everything we need. We have y over a squared, so 36, minus, xy squared over x squared, 12 squared, which is 144, equals 1. And again, if they're okay with a fraction, that's your answer. If they're not, multiply by the denominators. Okay, so we get 36 times 144, 36 times 144, and 36 times 144, and that's going to be 144y squared minus 36x squared is equal to whatever that is. 36 times 144, 5184. Okay. So either one. Again, I don't know which one they want you to answer as, but that's it. Alright, so that's 33. Again, similar setup for number 34. Just make sure that's 5 over 1, so your ratio is 5 over 1. So let's look at, let's say, 35, which gives you vertices at negative 3, 0, and 3, 0. And again, this tells me that h is equal to 0, or sorry, k is equal to 0. And if you add these together and average it, you get h. H is also equal to 0. And a is equal to 3. So you kind of have all that information from your vertices, being that this is h minus 3, k, and h plus 3, k. So k is 0, and if you average together, you get h, which is also 0. And sorry, this is a. So a ends up being 3. And then we pass through a point. So pass through negative 6, negative 1. So let's make it bigger. Scroll down. So we pass through that. Knowing that my center is at 0, 0. A is equal to 3. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to find the slope. I'm going to find the ratio of my asymptotes, okay? Which again, if this opens, what? So we know this opens horizontally. This is going to be plus or minus b over a. So I'm going to use the center and what it passes through to find the slope. So slope is equal to, if you remember, y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. So we'll say negative 1 minus 0 over negative 6 minus 0, which is 1/6. So plus or minus b over a is equal to 1 over 6. Since a is 3, then that means if we cross multiply, 6b is equal to 3, so b is equal to 1/2. So I'm going to plug everything into the function, x squared over a, which is squared, which is 9, minus y squared over 1/2, so which is happens to be, if you divide by 1/2, you actually multiply by 2, so 1/4 because you have to square it. And then we get equals 1. So we need to simplify this first. This right here, if you multiply top and bottom by 4, that cancels. I get x squared over 9 minus 4y squared equals 1. And I can just multiply everything by 9 because that's the only thing in the denominator. We get 9x squared minus 36y squared equals 9. Sorry, multiply by 9, that's not 9, that's just 1. So x squared minus 36y squared equals 9. So, there we go. So let's move on to another question. You can see these take time, okay, also because I'm explaining kind of everything as I go through. So here we have, move this over so I can see everything. Here we have foci, and it's going to be the same setup. They're going to give us C in this case. The origin's at 0, 0, so the foci is going to give us C. So let's set this one here. Since y is the one changing, I know that C is equal to the square root of 13. Center's at 0, 0 again. Okay. Ratio of what? A to B is equal to 5. So again, I have all the information. So I know since we have 0 plus or minus square root of 13, I know that my center is at 0, 0 again. And C is equal to square root of 13. All right. And we know since they gave us the asymptote, okay, the ratio of the asymptote, that plus or minus a over b is equal to plus or minus 5 over 1. So if you cross multiply, a is equal to 5b. So when I set all this up, okay, since we know it opens vertically, it's y squared over a squared minus x squared over b squared equals 1. Alright. And I know that c squared is equal to a squared plus b squared. And so since I don't have anything except for c, so I'm going to say a is 5b, and I'm going to plug that in for a here. So I'm going to know that square root of 13 squared is equal to 5b squared plus b squared. So that's going to be 13 is equal to 25 b squared plus b squared, which 13 is equal to 26b squared. Divide by 26, and that gives me 1/2 is equal to b squared. So that's b squared, and since if you square root this, and that's going to be kind of gross, yeah, I mean we could square root this. But what I could do now is plug this in and solve for a. It might be easier to do it that way. So we get, again, using square root of 13 squared is equal to a squared plus b squared, and b squared is 1/2. So 13 is equal to a squared plus 1/2. If I subtract 1/2, I'm going to get 12.5. So 12 and 1/2 is equal to a squared. Okay, or if you want to write as a fraction, that would be 25 over 2. Getting that nice. So yeah, that looks fun. So that gives us kind of everything we need for our function using our equation up here. Y squared over a squared, so y squared over 25 over 2 minus x squared over b squared, so 1 over 2 equals 1. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to simplify this by multiplying by 2. So times 2 times 2 times 2 times 2 to get rid of that denominator here. It gives me 2y squared over 25 minus 2x squared equals 1. And then I'm going to multiply by 25 to get rid of the denominator. Again, this right here, go back. So this right here is your answer if they're comfortable leaving a fraction. Okay, if they're not, they want no fractions, then you multiply everything by 25 to get 2y squared minus 50x squared equals 25. And there we go. Alright, now 39, 40, all the way down here, you no longer have the center at the origin, except for number 43, the center is at the origin, because it tells you the center's at the origin. So let's look at 39, where I don't have the center at the origin. So we have 4, 5, and 4, 1. Now these are your vertices. So what's changing is your y-value. So we know it opens vertically. Okay. Your h is 4. Your k is the average of these two. So 5 plus 1 over 2 is 6 over 2, which is 3. So k is 3. So what I know so far is I have open vertically y minus k, so y minus 3 squared over a squared minus x minus 4 squared over b squared equals 1. So I have that. Now I have to just find a and b. And again, since they gave us vertices, I'm not even worried about their second part yet. They gave us vertices, okay? So they gave us a way to find a. All right, since k is 3, all right, then 3 plus a is equal to 5, and 3 minus a is equal to 1. So a has to be 2. So a equals 2, which means this is 4. All right, now I'm going to use that last part here for 39, the asymptotes. All right, that's all I need. Again, you kind of have your origin here. You kind of have it's not your origin, but your center here. All right. But what I need is that plus or minus 7. That is going to be your plus or minus a over b. So, since plus or minus a over b is equal to plus or minus 7 over 1, cross multiply a is equal to 7 times b. And since a is 2, 2 is equal to 7 times b. B is equal to 2 over 7. Okay? So, I think we're good. Alright, we have everything we need. This is 2 over 7, so it means this is, that squared is 4 over 49. Now, to make this easier, I'm going to, again, I may be okay with that, but usually they don't want complex fractions. I'm at least going to multiply by 49 and 49 to cancel out that fraction. And so what I'm going to have is y minus 3 squared over 4 minus 49. Is it 4? Oh, it is 4, okay. X minus 4 squared over 4 equals 1. So again, if they're okay with that, good. If they don't want any fractions, multiply everything by 4, which is going to cancel out these two, and give you y minus 3 squared minus 49, x minus 4 squared equals 4. Alright, I got time for one more of these. So let's go down. I think you'll be okay in here. We're going to use Oh no, let's look at 41, because they don't give you two focus. They don't give you two, so it's going to be hard to find A and B. But they do give you the center. Okay, it might help to see it graphically. Let's put everything we have down. So we're doing 41 here. So your center is at 1, -2. So that's the center. -2, -2 is your focus. And your vertex is at -1, -2. So, I'm going to run out of room here real quick. So, what this tells me is the fact that y isn't changing. What is changing is x. So I know it's going to be opening horizontally. So it's going to be x minus, they give us a center, so x is 1 squared over a squared minus y plus 2 squared over b squared equals 1. So we have all that already. That's nice. Now, what they do give you, since you know your center and you know your vertex, so your vertex, this is, in this case, it's a decrease, so that's going to be your h minus a. So what's the change since h is 1? 1 minus a equals -1. So subtract 1, I get -a equals -2. So a is equal to 2. So now I know that this is 4. Here, same thing with c. This focus gives you c. So this is h minus c is equal to -2. So 1 minus c equals -2. Minus 1 minus 1, -c equals -3. So c equals 3. So we're going to be using c squared is equal to a squared plus b squared. So 3 squared is equal to 2 squared plus b squared. 9 is equal to 4 plus b squared. Ends up b squared is equal to 5. Now, I don't really even care what b is because I want b squared. So I know that this is 5. So again, I'm done with that. All right, unless they don't want any fractions, then we multiply by 4 times 5, 4 times 5, 4 times 5, which gives you 5x minus 1 squared, because the 4's cancel, minus 4y plus 2 squared, because the 5's cancel, and then 4 times 5 is 20. So again, if they want fraction, that's fine. If they want no fractions, there we go. All right, one more with eccentricity. I'm going to need to clear all this, so erase all the way up. So let's look at okay, I mean, let's go ahead and look at 45 even. So 45, we get the eccentricity, so E is equal to 25 over 9. All right. Focus at 9, -1, and 11, -1. So foci 9, -1, and -11, -1. Now this tells me that K is -1, and if I add these together, I'm going to get, and that's a positive 9, -2 over 2. So again, average these to find your H. So H is equal to 9 plus a -11 over 2, which is -2 over 2, which is -1. So my center is at -1, -1. Okay. So I know it is going to, since this is opening, since here x changes and y doesn't change, it's opening sideways again. So x plus 1 squared over a squared minus y plus 1 squared over b squared equals 1. Alright, so all I have to do now, move this out of the way, all I have to do now is find a and b. Now all I have left, and again, I have my focus, So you have your focus. So this is C. It gives you C. So since we know -1 is, let's see here. Sorry, I'm blanked out for a second. So this right here, this 9 is equal to H plus C. Since we know H is -1, 9 is equal to -1 plus C. So C is 8. All right. So we're going to be using the eccentricity. So E is equal to 25 over 9. And this is going to give you your ratio. This is a ratio of the square root of a squared plus b squared over a. All right. So a is 9. In this case, a is 9. All right. So it's going to give us the square root . Pause this for a second. Gotta go do something. Sorry, I just realized I made a mistake here. So going back up here, and you may see me just jump ahead. It's because I paused it and did a little bit of work. I subtracted 1. I should have added 1 over here. So C is 10. All right. So we're going to use the fact that this right here is C over A. And we know C is 10. So 25 over 9 is equal to C over A. And we know that C is 10. So 25 over 9 is equal to 10 over A. Over A. We're going to cross multiply and get 90 is equal to 25A. So A is equal to 90 over 25. And if you divide by 5, A is equal to 18 over 5. All right. So that means I'm going to have to solve for B using the a squared plus b squared. So this is going to be fun. C squared is equal to a squared plus b squared. Since C is 100, C is 10, 100 is equal to this squared, which would be, let's see, 18 squared, 324 over 25 plus b squared. So 100 minus 324 over 25. And that gives you, I'm just doing this in a calculator, 2176 over 25 is b squared. I'm going to see if we can square root that. That'd be nice if we could. Nope, doesn't work out very nicely. Well, it doesn't matter because that's all I need anyway is b squared. All right, and I have a squared. Well, this is going to be a real pretty one. So we have our formula down here, right here. All right, so it's plus 1 plus 1. So we get x plus 1 squared over 324 over 25. Man, this seems to be awful. 2176 over 25 equals 1. Let's see here. Something's got to be off here. Something's got to be off. Let me try this. Let me look at it again real quick. I'm going to pause.